Welcome everyone and Happy New Year. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar hosted by the Organization Development and Change and Workforce Education and Development Program at Penn State. This is a monthly webinar series presented during your lunch hour. My name is Jenny Lee and I'm a PhD candidate in Workforce Education and Development Program. We also have Sagan Giri, who is the moderator for Q&A session. Today, we're presenting Cara Leadership, The Art of Leading with Love, presented by Dr. Giselle Barrion. In terms of the interactive format for this webinar, please use the chat feature in the Zoom platform. If you have any questions about the presentation, please use Q&A feature on Zoom. You can see the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. The Q&A session will be at the end of the presentation. Our online Master of Professional Studies in Organization Development and Change are designed for professionals who need the skills and knowledge to effectively lead change in their organization. Furthermore, there is a PhD program in Workforce Education and Development with a concentration in Human Resource Development and Organization Development. Our program has created a continuous monthly webinar series with experts around the world. Today, our presenter is Dr. Giselle Barrion. Dr. Giselle Barrion has a PhD in Organizational Development and Planning, and she is an internationally certified management consultant by CMC Global. She is a seasoned management and OD consultant, personal development coach, international speaker, and educator. Currently, Dr. Barrion is the Managing Director and Chief OD Consultant of Great Learnings and Beyond Management Consultancy. She is also an Assistant Professor at the College of Commerce and Business Administration in University of Santo Tomas and the Communication Deputy of Hotel Sogo. She is a mentor in Southeast Asia Interdisciplinary Development Institute Graduate School of OD. Here is Dr. Giselle Barrion.
All right. Hi, good morning, good afternoon to everyone. Thank you, Miss Jenny, for that generous introduction. Okay, so our topic for today is about Cara leadership. It's the art of leading with love. Okay. Now, before anything else, before we go on to the meat of our discussion, we just have this self-assessment exercise wherein we will be showing you some hypothetical questions. It's just 1 to 10 items, and it's multiple choice. Each item that you will answer will have corresponding points. This is not poll, this is not survey, this is more self-assessment. So I invite you to get your pen and paper ready. This is a manual type of test. Okay, so put yourself in the shoe of the leader. Say, for example, in your organization, you found out that your staff won a lottery and he currently shares his blessings with some colleagues from the same department. Now, if you're the leader, what would be the amount that you will expect from that staff who won a lottery? Would it be the same as what he's giving out to his colleagues or different? Okay, so is it A, I should receive the same amount as what he gives to his colleagues? Or is it B, I should receive a bigger amount since I'm the team lead? Or is it C, it's okay if I receive a smaller amount or not at all? So what is your choice, A, B, or C? What's the first thing that comes into your mind? That should be your answer. Okay, number 2. You were recently asked to lead a new team or department. What would be the first thing you will do? Is it A, study the new team or department so I know how I can contribute my talents better? Or is it B, treat the one who gave me the new assignment for a cup of coffee and donut? Or is it C, look at the possibility of who to befriend in that company who seem to be very influential and helpful? So what's your honest answer here? All right. So number 3, a friend from another department asked if you could possibly mentor her in your subject of expertise. However, she needs to be mentored ASAP, as soon as possible, but you are very busy at work. Aside from the coaching sessions you need to attend for your team. Now, what would you possibly do? Is it A, connect her to the other subject matter experts who can possibly help her immediately? Or is it B, assess first if she can return the favor to you before referring another subject matter expert or SME? Or is it C, ask her to treat you out for a cup of coffee or drink so you can assess her requirements and plan out his mentoring? Okay, I hope you are actually answering the questions. And then number 4, there are additional workloads for the upcoming Christmas party program that are assigned to your team with only a handful of members. Now, what would you do? Is it A, ask the other members of my team to do the boring and difficult task while you focus on the task that appeals to you? Or is it B, volunteer for the boring and difficult task but make your team know about your big contribution to the output? Or is it C, volunteer for the boring and difficult tasks, regardless whether it gets rewarded or not? Now, number 5, since you do not have an assigned task yet for an upcoming recognition event, some of the event committee members are asking for your assistance. Now, the lead of awards and tax committee is a funny and popular office figure, requested if you could join him in the committee. Now, the lead for the program requested if you could host the event since that is your area of expertise. Now, the third one is the lead for crowd management and ushers is requesting you to assist them since the safety of all employees during in-person gatherings is a critical concern. Now, which would you likely help? Is it A, awards and tax committee? Or is it B, programs committee? Or is it C, crowd management committee? So what's your answer? Okay, number 6. One of your staff whom you had a conflict with in the past is asking if she can be recommended in another department. You know that your department lacks manpower and she has a lot of undelivered projects. Although you're aware that transferring her will ease the tension within the department, plus it will be a good career move for her since it's a higher post, it will also mean more backlogs for your team. The latter may result to anxiety and stress of the entire team too. Now, what would you do? Is it A, check first how she can possibly help you before recommending her? Or is it B, recommend her immediately since it's a good career move, will relieve the tension within your team, plus you can all move forward immediately? Or is it C, do not recommend since you know she is not a good asset in the company? Now, 7, one of your members suggested a good program title for an upcoming team building activity, which he coined, We Commit Together, We Achieve Together. Although this was initially his, you helped in the development of the idea for the title. You mentioned the slogan to the top management and they love the title of the event. Now, what would you do? Is it A, inform our top management that the slogan is my staff's idea, I just help in its development? Is it B, inform our top management that it is both our idea? And C, do not inform our top management who coined the slogan since they did not ask anyway. So these are more of self-reflection exercises. You need not chat your answers. You know, it's for your self-consumption so that you will get to know your personality assessment later on. Number 8, you are currently organizing an event wherein you need to have a singer for the invocation. You found the gem through one of your staff named Martha. Unfortunately, Martha is overworked lately since there is a limited manpower. She begged if she could possibly be given at least a week to decide. The event is 2 weeks from now, but the lead of the program is asking to finalize the program performer within the day. Now, what would you do? Is it A, tell her that she needs to finalize her decision within the day, take it or leave it? Or is it B, are you going to tell her or talk to her to the lead to extend the deadline in finalizing the program performer? Otherwise, you will no longer help them. So talk to the lead to extend the deadline in finalizing the program performer. And then C, offer the assistance she may need to help her with the decision making. Okay, so that's for number 8. And then number 9, the main reason why I joined the company is letter A, to give back to the society, to my family, and to God for all the blessings received. Or is it B, to offer my talents, skills, and knowledge for the benefit of helping others? Or is it C, to improve myself, broaden my network, and earn a good credential or status? All right. And then number 10, a friend from the company named Mike gave a good recommendation to me in LinkedIn even without asking. What was his reason for doing this? Is it A, Mike is just really helpful and generous? Or is it B, Mike wants to pay back my kindness to him when I also recommended him in LinkedIn? Or is it C, Mike wants me to recommend him too? But I hope by now you were able to identify your answer. But if in case you miss out some items, we are going to get back to it in a while. So this is the last item. So let's check your answers. So this is the first question. So you can actually go back to it if you were able to answer it earlier. Okay. So if you got an A, give yourself a 2 point. For B, that's 1 point, and C, 3 points. Okay. So again, if it's A, 2, B, 1, and C, 3. Second item. Review your answers, or review your answer. If you got the right one, just choose one answer out of the 3. All right. A is 3 points, B is 2, and C is 1 point. Again, A, 3, B, 2, and C, 1. Number 3. A, 3 points, B is 2 points, C is 1. Number 4. If you got an A, that's 1 point, B is 2 points, and C is 3 points. Okay, so for number 5, this one is kind of lengthy, so you may want to take a look again if you got the right answer. The first thing that comes into your mind, is it Awards and Tax Committee, B, Program Committee, C, Crowd Management Committee? There's no right or wrong answer here. It just aims to test your personality. Okay, so if it's A, that's 1 point, B is 2 points, and C is 3 points. Okay, so number 6. If you got an A, that's 2 points, B is 3 points, and then C is 1 point. All right, let's go on 7. A is 3, B 2, and C is 1. Okay, number 8. A is 1 point, B is 2 points, and then C is 3 points. Okay, second to the last number, the reason why you joined the company. If you got an A, that's 2, B is 3, and C is 1. All right, and the last is related to LinkedIn. A is 3 points, B is 2 points, and C is 1 point. Now, we will go to math. So kindly count the number of your answers, the total points of your answers. Okay. Now, if you got the 10 to 15, who got the 10 to 15, please tell us. Just say a yes if you are 10 to 15 points. Can we have a yes? All right, so we got 1 yes here. Okay, 10 to 15 points, yes. There's only 1, all right. Now, who got 16 to 24? Can we have a yes here? Okay, there's one. One, two, there's only two who got 16 to 24. Now, how about 25 to 30? A lot of you got 25 to 30. Okay, so, all right. So that activity is actually test whether you are a taker, a matcher, or a giver. If you got 10 to 15 points, that means to say you are a taker. A taker is somebody who actually wants to get the most out of the deal. Okay. Whereas a matcher is somebody who helps other people if he or she also receives some help from another person. If, for example, I will help you if you will help me back, a tit for tat concept. Now, a giver, on the other hand, is someone who helps you even if that person will not get anything in return. Okay, I'm sure that you're kind of familiar with this concept. Okay, I will go to that later on, the taker, the matcher, and the giver. So I hope by now you were able to find out your interpersonal relation skills. Actually, this one is inspired by the book of Adam Grant, the best-selling author of the book Give and Take. And according to him, these three interpersonal relation skills can actually help you identify your level of success in life, whether in the area of communication or leading people. And this has been my one of my related literatures in the study of Cara leadership. Because Cara leadership is actually a study which came from my 2-year dissertation. Okay, and later on, I will tell you more about it. But in the meantime, I'd like you to reflect on these questions. First is, what is the first image that comes into your mind when you hear the word leader and why? What is your idea whenever you hear the word leader? Maybe in your school or in your organization, in your company. Anyone? You can chat it here. Okay. So there's a question here. What is the title of the book? The title of the book is Give and Take by Adam Grant. Those questions are actually done by yours truly. We've had the Cronbach Alpha tested. It has a good Cronbach Alpha rating, but it's actually inspired from the book of Adam Grant. Okay, so if you have any answers to the question, please write it down in the chat box. So what is the first image that comes into your mind whenever you hear the word leader? And, okay, what is your own definition of a leader? Your image may be different from the definition, right? Your image may, you may have your father's image. Whenever you hear the word leader, you think of your father or your parents, or probably your teacher or your boss in the office. But what is your real definition of a leader? Maybe they are the figured leaders in the surrounding or the environment where you are at. But what is your ideal definition of it? It might be different. And what is your recollection now? I just like to find out if you know about servant leadership as well as transformational leadership. And what is your recollection of the definition of the two? Because we will talk about it later on. Okay, we have an answer here about the definition of a leader. Inspires shared vision, someone whom you look up to like God. Okay, thank you for those answers. So let's go now to servant leader. Servant leader is actually popularized by Robert Greenleaf in the 1970s. It's someone who believes in sharing power by prioritizing the need of others first before his or her own. It's more of serving. The idea is about serving. Whereas transformational leadership is defined as the capacity to convey and bring about substantial change in the organization's vision, strategy, and culture. Okay, this one was popularized by Robert Daft. Transformational leadership is very common, especially for organizations who are undergoing a lot of changes. Whereas servant leadership, you can normally find this or you can normally experience this in nonprofit organizations. Okay, could be NGOs, could be churches, or other nonprofit organizations. Now, on the other hand, there is what we call Cara leadership. But for us to understand what Cara leadership is, let's find out first what we meant by Cara. Now, Cara came from the Latin word carus, which means beloved. Now, in some countries, Cara means face, but in Latin, it means beloved. Now, what is Cara leadership? Unlike servant leadership, which is serving others first, and transformational leadership, which is creating substantial change, Cara leadership focuses on giving without expecting anything in return. So the concept of servant leadership is more of serving. Transformational leadership is more of change. Cara leadership is about giving. Okay. Now, Cara came from the Latin word caros, as what we mentioned earlier. It shows the most relevant norms of the concept of giving or benevolence. Why giving? It's because the greatest manifestation of love, okay, the meaning of caros or cara is actually through giving, right? Say, for example, if you like a girl, if you like a woman, what would you normally do? You would give gifts, chocolates, flowers, or maybe you would give something else like jewelries or what have you. Because giving is the greatest manifestation or the best way by which we can exhibit love to someone. A Cara leader is someone who shows love for others by means of being charitable, authentic, responsive, and appreciative. It is leading with love. So these are the different dimensions of Cara. And these things are actually the dimensions that evolved during the research. There were 10 dimensions, different giving dimensions mentioned in the survey, wherein it's a different survey, not like that, but those questions actually aim to find out what are the important leadership traits or giving traits that a person prefer in order for them to be more engaged and committed at work. Locally, here in the Philippines, I have a local inspiration actually of Cara leadership. The Book of Adam Grant was my international inspiration or a book inspiration, but when it comes to our local setting, it's inspired by this concept, which we call locally as bayanihan. Okay, it's actually a volunteerism act wherein, as you can see in the photo, a traditional Filipino value wherein in the provinces, in the rural areas, in the past, Filipinos would normally help a fellow Filipino transfer a nipa hut. A nipa hut is an iconic house, which is part of our Filipino culture, made of nipa and bamboo, wherein a nipa hut would be relocated to another place that's safer. And all they have to do is to call the other boys in the village to help them out transfer that nipa hut to a safer place. And these people, you get to have their commitment, their engagement, even if you don't get to pay them in return. And that has been the tradition ever since. And up until now, we're still doing that. So there is a local inspiration behind the Cara leadership. Okay, now back to my research. When it comes to the conceptual framework of Cara leadership, as we know, for those who are taking their dissertation or thesis, you will encounter the independent variables, the intervening, and as well as the dependent variables. So the independent variable, of course, would be the leadership style, because he wanted to find out how it affects the level of engagement as well as commitment, which are the dependent variables identified in the study. Now, when it comes to the leadership styles, as mentioned, I took the inspiration from a foreign author, which is Adam Grant, in his book Give and Take, wherein he identified the three different interpersonal relation style, and that is giving, taking, and matching. Now, when it comes to the dependent variable, I had adopted the Utrecht Work Engagement Scale as well as Organizational Commitment Questionnaire. So there's the word adopted or meaning modified. And then intervening variables will be the demographic profile, of course, like for example, their age, their income, how it affects their perception of their leader. Okay, there are certain preliminary research questions that we've tried to answer in our research. Like for example, what is the significant influence between the demographic profile and the leadership style? How does the demographic profile affect engagement and commitment? And what is the impact of each leadership dimension to engagement and each leadership dimension to commitment? And which among the leadership dimensions will lead to high engagement and commitment, and so on. All right. And we've made use of ANOVA analysis and multiple regression analysis on top of the other statistical tools. All right. Now, the sample population that I've had for this study are the churches in the Philippines, wherein I'm actually inspired by these churches because they are very dependent or reliant to volunteers in terms of operating their masses and other administrative functions. So because of that inspiration, these volunteers, they don't get paid anything in return for what they do, but you would see that they last in churches for as long as they live. Some of them, they're already in their 70s, but they're still working for free as volunteers. And how come churches can keep them even if they are not getting paid, if they don't get paid in return? So what is there in the church or to their leaders or with their leaders? That's why people are engaged and committed. And because of that curiosity, I had done this study with the church as my sample population. The ministry leaders and of course the followers of the ministry leaders, particularly the volunteers of each ministry, of the different ministries. But how does it relate now, given that the nature of the research is for nonprofit organization? I am now conducting this concept even to profit-centered or private organizations. But how can you link the gap, considering that it initially started from nonprofit organization? Now, this related literature would link the gap. In the study of Gideon back in 1983, he said that employees and volunteers are committed differently given the free will nature of volunteerism. So meaning to say that the reason why volunteers are committed, it's because in the first place, they know what they have been to for. So that could explain perhaps why these church volunteers are very much committed and engaged. Using Maslow's hierarchy, volunteers seem to satisfy their higher order needs than their paid counterparts, according to Moore and Anderson back in 1985. However, there's an interesting finding that was revealed by Leo Troth in 2001 that volunteers and paid staff who are doing similar roles in the same setting have similar job attitudes about psychological contracting, meaning these are unwritten rules in the organization. You do things even if it's not part of your job description. That's part of psychological contracting. And effective commitment, your emotion towards your organization. And organizational justice. Okay, effective commitment, on the other hand, is the emotional attachment of an employee to an organizational values or how much an employee likes being part of an organization. A high level of effective commitment impacts continuance or the feel of the need to stay and motivation to promote the organization to others. Just like to highlight that part, you can see that yellow highlight that volunteers and paid staff who are doing similar roles in the same setting have similar job attitudes. So meaning to say, if they are subjected to the same environment, whether you have Paul who is not paid, a volunteer, and Peter who is actually paid, okay, he's a paid employee, given the same nature of their environment, they would have the same attitude towards commitment, psychological contracting, and organizational justice. So meaning to say, if you are going to apply the concept of Cara, okay, provided it is in the same setting, people will also be affected positively with regard to their level of engagement and commitment. Now, what are the four dimensions of Cara leadership? Now, as mentioned in the study, in the original study, there are 10 dimensions mentioned, but out of the 10, okay, what evolved is the four to be the strongest to affect engagement and commitment. The others that didn't make it are considerate of others, dependable and collaborative, fair and logical, humble, enthusiastic, and respectful. Now, what are these four that made it as the strongest? Okay, we have the charitable part, or the sharing of talents, skills, and resources, appreciative, responsive, and authentic. Okay, so let's define them one by one. Okay, we talk about charitable as being generous, or the generous sharing of knowledge, talent, skill, time, or other resources without expecting anything in return. Now, all of these are actually generous dimensions or generous characteristics, but charitable here was coined to refer to, you're sharing a part of you. That's being charitable. You're not sharing everything, but you're sharing a part of you, which could be knowledge, talent, skills, or time. So we need to say, when you talk about charity, you don't refer to something monetary. I mean, don't just refer to something monetary. And then appreciative. Being appreciative is also another dimension, another giving dimension, which means genuine and generous in recognizing the efforts and talents of others and also allowing others to shine. And responsive is listening well to others' needs so he or she can respond better and shares generously one's ability and resources without hesitation. And authentic. So regardless whether you're charitable, appreciative, responsive, it will be a futile effort, of course, if you're not authentic, which means you consistently display a generous and genuine personality. And your mission in life is always to be of service to others, regardless of who they are or what they are. You do not have any discrimination as to who you will show your generosity for, whether that person can pay you back or not. All right. Surprisingly, though charitable may seem to be the likely best option amongst people, but in the private organizations where I'm conducting Cara leadership for, most of them likes appreciative trait. Most of them love or like appreciative dimension. I don't know, for some reason, maybe most people would really like to be appreciated or recognized for what they do, and some bosses, some leaders lack that skill of complimenting or simple praise. They do not praise their staff for the good that they do. They always see the wrong things. All right. So Cara leadership is said to affect positively the level of engagement and commitment of the worker or the follower. Now, the next question would be, what is the difference now of engagement and commitment? You might wonder. So how would you know if you are engaged, and when would you know that you are committed? So here are some of the traits which you can actually review so that you would also find out if you're still engaged in doing your dissertation, or you're still engaged in your job, or in whatever you're busy with right now, or maybe engaged with your partner. I don't know. So here are some of the important behavioral indicators. So when I do my job, I feel bursting with energy when I perform my assignment. Okay. Number 2, I find my work meaningful and purposive. Number 3, I do not notice that time flies when I do my work. And 4, in doing my assignments, my strengths or stamina never easily wanes except when I'm physically sick. Number 5, I'm usually eager to start my day, especially when I know I have work to do. I feel happy about the work I do for my department and company. Number 7, I find my work inspiring. Number 8, I'm proud of the role assigned to me. I can continue working for a very long period of time without feeling negative. And I find my assigned role very challenging. So in the survey, we've had the 4-point Likert scale, wherein 1 is strongly disagree, 2 is disagree, 3 is agree, 4 is strongly agree. So 4, not 5, because we wanted to avoid having a gray area that 5-point scale normally offers. That's why I made use of the 4. That's for the engagement part. You need not answer that. It's just a quick reflection. So for the work engagement, this is how it was defined in the research. It's the physical, cognitive, and emotional manifestations of organizational members' attitude and behavior that affect their work performance. And it's characterized by having high in energy, involvement, and professional efficacy. Burnout or loss of engagement on the job is the complete opposite of work engagement. Now, it's exhibited by vigor, the high level of enthusiasm, dedication, or strong involvement, as well as absorption, your level of focus and immersion. Okay, now the way we did it when we analyzed the statements is that we tried to segmentize the 10th question to identify any points of similarity, and we've come up with 3. And it's optimistic and energetic, finds purpose and meaning, and proud of one's work. Those are the 3 important dimensions when it comes to the work engagement part out of the 10 questions. Now, here are the individual statements for the commitment part. I'm willing to put in a great deal of effort beyond what is normally expected in order to help my team or company achieve its objective or mission. I talk about the company to my friends as a great place to work. I value loyalty to my company. I would accept almost any type of work or assignment in order to keep working for this company. And I believe and share the same values with the department I belong to, the company in general. I'm proud to tell others that I'm working for this company. I couldn't see myself working for a different organization. My company or department really inspires me to perform my best in the job assigned. I find it easy to agree with the policies of my company on important matters relating to my employment. And I feel that my decision to work in this company is a very good decision. Now, what is a commitment or organizational commitment? Given those individual statements earlier. So it's the intensity of a person's association with and involvement in the organization. Unlike engagement earlier, it's more of how you feel towards your work, your job, your level of enthusiasm or energy. Commitment is more of your level of pride when it comes to being associated with that organization. And if your personal values are aligned with them, okay, that's commitment. That will determine your level of commitment. Now, it can be recognized by these 3 fundamental components. Number 1 is solid confidence in and recognition of the organization's goals and values. Number 2, an eagerness to exercise significant endeavor to support the organization. And number 3, an intense aspiration to stay as a member of that organization. So just like work engagement, there are main commitment dimensions, namely going beyond the extra mile, proud to be associated. 3rd is being loyal. And 4th is sharing common values. So out of the 10 questions, okay, there are 4 main dimensions out of the 10 questions. And this is important when doing the multiple regression analysis, especially if, because the multiple regression analysis will depend on the number of population or sample respondents that you have. So for Cara leadership model summary, whenever we join an organization, whether in school or as an employee, or if it's your own business, we always give in an equivalent or a competent amount of our talents, skills, and knowledge. Okay, that's the resource that we bring in. And our purpose is to serve, right? That is our means. This is what you do. And the way we serve, for us to embed Cara leadership, is to always or consciously apply the traits of Cara, which is being charitable, appreciative, responsive, and authentic, which is said to positively influence the level of engagement and commitment, not only of our people, but also of us, of ourselves. Because what is surprising in the study is that those people who are practicing Cara, those leaders are actually very high in terms of their giving traits, are actually those who are also high in terms of their level of engagement and commitment. Here in the Philippines, during the height of the pandemic in 2020, we have this what we call pantry, community pantry, wherein there's a willingness to give things of value to others. There's a there's a table that they set wherein people have something extra in their home supplies, food supplies. They will put it there in that community pantry or table, and people who does not have much, those who do not have much, they can get it for free. And once your lifestyle, your livelihood improve, then you can replace it with something on your supply so that others also can benefit from the same. And it's like a chain of giving or chain of concern and love for others, domino effect. So that's a perfect example of generosity in the Philippines. And there are some organizations that they also adopted that for their employees. They also set up, I know a friend of mine, she owns a call center wherein she set up a community pantry in their office. She has a table there and put on different supplies, canned goods, noodles, etc. And employees who will be needing such can bring it home, and those who have improved their lifestyle or who actually have much at home can actually replace it back. You know, that's a good indication of generosity. Now, how can we adopt this or apply this in the organization? In some of the private organizations where I conduct this to, these are just some of the keys that I give them on how they can apply Cara leadership in the way they do things. So, like for example, understanding motivation. Motivation could be extrinsic and intrinsic. There are many ways by which you can motivate employees, not just compensation. Feedback, which is the breakfast of champions. There are a lot of people that I know, they get demotivated because they are not giving enough feedback. They will just get surprised because during the annual appraisal or the annual performance review, they'll find out that they did not perform well. But if there's constant feedback, then they would know which they need to improve so that there's no surprise during the performance appraisal. And key three is empowering other people, regardless if they're new in the organization, and most especially if they're seasoned. You treat seasoned employees like the way they should be treated, which is more delegating them properly or empowering them, providing them a venue to grow. And then key four is being genuinely interested with others, not only when you are asking for help. There are some leaders that they will just go to your cubicle, they will just visit you or chat you if it so happened that they need to follow up some assignments. But staff or people in general feel better if you are also after their welfare or you're interested in what's happening to them. A simple, for example, simple greeting, regardless of what is it. Let's say they made a good job or they finished their PhD, they finished their MBA, simple congratulations and announcing it to the rest of the department. If they prefer it, of course, if they want it, or complimenting them in public, it would do a great deal of good to them to boost their morale. And of course, building a positive culture instead of being the person. There are some leaders that instead of building a positive culture, they would be the one to be the proponent of rumors, of different fights or rifts in the office. So let's be a channel of that positivity instead of being the the reason for the gap in the organization or the team. And key six is developing people for peak performance, being after their welfare, not just of your own welfare. sharing what you know to others, not because they will be better than you, but it's because it's going to help them in the process. And win-win communication. It's not win-lose, but always trying to strike that balance. I win, but I also want you to win. Let's try to settle things. Let's try to meet our level of expectations and settle things properly. That's win-win communication. Now, the question is, how do you think you can help embed Cara as a way of life in your respective group, organization, and even to your family? You can apply Cara everywhere, because even in the family, if you're a parent, if you're a parent, you have kids, you are the leader in the household. So how can you apply this leadership trait, this Cara, in the way of life? Cara leadership can be applied in some familiar concepts like the management functions and situational leadership, but it has to be done consciously. It is a way of life. Okay. All right, so if you are interested to find out more about Cara leadership and how we can help you apply it into your organization, you can actually call us at 79578183. Area code 632, again 79578183, and 0917-867-8007. That's our mobile number. Or you can also email us at info.glbconsulting@gmail.com. You can also visit our website, www.greatlearningsandbeyond.com. Okay, we also have Facebook page, that's GLB Management Consultancy. And you can also check me out, Dr. Giselle L, Barrion, my Facebook page. Thank you so much and have a blessed day ahead. God bless us all.
Hi, Dr. Barrion. Thank you so much for your presentation. We have a couple of questions that I've received in my DM. So I'll begin with the first one. So the first question is, how can we apply Cara leadership into practice, and what are the steps?
Okay. Cara leadership, as mentioned earlier, thank you so much for that question, Sagan. Cara leadership, as what we mentioned earlier, is that it's something that can be part or the way of life. It has to be consciously done. Although by nature we are actually loving and giving people, but we have to consciously do it in everything that we do. And it's not just that you're a leader that you can do it. Even if you do not have a staff under you, you can still apply Cara as part of self-leadership trait. It's a day-to-day conscious effort.
Thank you. We have a second question, which is, how would Cara leadership work in an organization with a hyper-competitive culture?
That is a good question. Usually in a highly competitive culture, the more that you need to apply Cara, because in a highly competitive culture, there is an impression that people do things just to survive. There's an impression that it's a dog eat dog world, wherein people will do things for their own good, for selfish reason. But if you are someone who is perceived by people to be giving, someone who is selfless, someone who allows people to shine, a Cara leadership trait, appreciative, someone who is listening, a good listener, someone who shares knowledge, etc., and so on. This giving traits that I mentioned earlier, the more that you will have a positive impact in the company, and the more that people would tend to follow you, even without you pushing them.
Thank you. So we have another one, another question, which is, can you or how can you apply Cara leadership if your personal values do not align with the organization's values and strategic mission?
Okay, in the first place, if your personal values and strategic mission do not apply to the organization, I think you are in the wrong organization. Better rethink if you should still stay in that organization. You see, it's important that this is what I teach to my trainees and even to my students. It's important that before you join a company, you get to also to know them. It's not only the interviewer who has the rights to find out information about you. You can also ask questions, and you can also do your own research. Can also do your in-depth research about that organization so that you would know if there's an alignment there. But there are some information that you might be blinded at first. So you can only find it out once you start joining that organization, right? So the moment you step into the organization and you have already given it a shot, you've tried it out the best way you can, but still you feel that there's a disconnect, there's a misalignment between your belief system and their belief, then better think about it if this is really for me. Now, the question is, should I resign? Now, you do not resign immediately. Okay, I do not recommend it. Even those people are asking me if I can already resign. It's up to you, but if you're going to ask me, considering the situation right now, do not resign yet unless you have, a default. Otherwise, you stay if you do not have any other offer, and you just try to learn things from their perspective and hopefully find the alignment or any similarities with your values as to their or to your organization's value.
Thank you. So we have another comment and a question. So Dr. Barrion, thank you for your presentation. How can I get buy-in to apply Cara leadership in my organization?
How can you get buy-in?
Buy-in.
Buy-in to apply Cara leadership. And okay, like in the way we do it normally, as an organization development person, it's important that for you to have a buy-in, regardless if it's Cara leadership or whatever interventions that you will be doing in your company. It's important that you have the trust, the respect of the top management. Why? Because they will be the one to, usually in the organization, how they operate is top-down approach. Now, once you get their buy-in, their trust, their commitment, that's the time that things will be more supported by the other departments, which will hopefully these departments will help propel your plans and programs, like for example, Cara leadership. So you need to get, if you are, let's say, a department head or let's say an officer or manager, and you have a boss in your department, let's say an HRD head above you, you can actually talk to her and get her buy-in first, get her trust, her respect and support to it. And then at the same time, once you get the support of your boss, that's the time you can talk to the top management so that you can get the support of the CEO or the president so that they can convene the rest of the departments in a plenary, in a meeting, so that once you already start identifying the different plans and programs to help embed Cara leadership as a way of life in the company, it will be easier for you to do. Okay. Now, I'm sure that we all have our own dynamics in the organization. Some may not have a good relationship with their bosses, but it will take time, But if you have a good initiative, if you have a good project, just think of your advocacy, just think of your mission, focus on it. If you have a good perspective, if you have a good mission, regardless, even if you're not in good terms with your boss on a personal level, you can still meet eye to eye in a professional level, and your plans and programs definitely will come into fruition. So just always stick to your mission. If you have a good objective, if you have a good mission, people will see it and they cannot deny it.
Thank you. That was beautifully put. So we have a last question here. Are there any downsides, cons, or unintended consequences of this leadership model?
Okay, thank you for that. The only downside of it is that if the person whom you're always showing your giving trait is somebody who is selfish, who does not, share back whatever things that he or she is receiving from you, and that is actually a trigger or a warning sign that you may be now could be a matcher. Okay, you can actually shift a little or alter your Cara personality a little if you have noticed that this person is a taker or always want to get the best of the deal but does not share it to other people. So that the reason for that, or so where's consistency there? I thought Cara is authentic or being consistent. Okay, it's still authentic, it's still being consistent. Why? It's because you're just teaching the person the art of being giving. Otherwise, if you just give and give and this person is just receiving and receiving, what would happen? It's just one-way traffic. Cara is supposed to be two-way, although you do not expect it in return, but you expect the person to give it back to someone else, not directly to you, but to people, so that the giving culture will be spread out in the organization. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your presentation. Back to you, Jenny.
Thank you, Dr. Barrion. You're participating in this webinar in Philippines now. We know that it's almost 2 a.m. in your time zone, and thank you
Yes.
so much for your presentation. And it was a great pleasure being with you today.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. On behalf of our audience program, we hope you think this webinar is helpful. We didn't get to your questions, please send us an email or reach out to the presenter directly via email. For the future webinar, we would like to hear your feedback on today's webinar. Please take the survey using the link in the chat box. It takes less than 3 minutes. Our next webinar is about how can firms improve their OD practices to continue evolving effectively in a rapidly changing world by Fahad Al-Shawan on February 25th, Friday from 12 to 1 p.m. Registrations for all events can be found on all of our social media platforms such as Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. Again, thank you everyone for joining us today, and we will see you in the next webinar. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.